Man, you get to deal with giant bass.
That's right, that's right.
The biggest of the big. Hey guys, welcome back to Your Lake Fort Guide. Hey, we're back here at the Freshwater Fishery Center down here in Athens, Texas, and I got Mr. Kyle Brooks here. How you doing, sir?
Good. How you, Billy?
Kyle, you work with the Lunker program, man. You get to deal with giant bass.
That's right.
The biggest of the big. So for those that don't know, the Lunker program is a program that we've had in Texas for quite some time. We're going to talk about that in detail here in a minute, but basically the gist of it is if you catch one over 13 pounds during the season when y'all are spawning them, you can turn it into a guy like Kyle Brooks down here at the program,
yep.
And they will take it into captivity, study it, spawn it, and then restock our lakes with pure Florida strain giant genetic offspring.
Correct.
Is that basically a good summary of the program?
Yeah, that's a good summary. That's how it started. The program started in 1986 with the first fish, which actually came
Mark
from
Stevenson.
Lake Fork. That's right.
We've
Mark
actually had to sit down with Mark before, a long time ago on this channel. We've talked about that. Yeah, state record at the time. Mark caught the fish that started the Lunker program.
That's right. Yeah, and the program really started in that time to hit a couple of main points, and one of them was promote catch and release, because everything that at that time was catch
Different
and release to the grease, not back in the lake.
Release to the
grease. It's a different ball game, and these large fish, is really a proponent of stocking Florida bass in Texas waters, and so these large fish were new to Texas, prior to that stocking, and then ultimately the program developing. We really didn't see many double-digit bass in Texas. And so once that happened, we started to see the development of these huge fish. So we wanted to not only promote catch and release, but figure out how to promote proper handling techniques for these fish, because we'd never seen them before. So we've got to learn a lot about them, learn how to handle them, take care of them, and release them successfully. And then the third part of that was to start a selective breeding program for that trophy, world-class size bass.
Yeah, it's been an awesome program to watch develop, and the main takeaway that I have, and we kind of briefly spoke on this earlier when I first met you, is if you look at the trophy bass fishing throughout the state of Texas in 1986, and then you look at the trophy bass fishing, the tournament bags, the 30-pound bags, the 40-pound bags, the 20-pound bags on some of these lakes is a big deal. The overall average tournament weights, the overall number of giant bass that gets caught in the state every year, it's dramatically increased since the inception of this program. Now, whether some people want to say it's because of or in spite of, people can make up their own opinions. But one thing that nobody can argue, it's irrefutable, that the quality of fishing in this state for trophy bass has inarguably gone up dramatically since we started the Lunker program. Yeah,
I think we're seeing a lot of the fruits of that labor. Really, it starts with good management too. We've got to have good management. You've done some videos and conversations with Jake over Lake Fork and several East Texas lakes, and
getting some good science out there.
We've got to have some good science. We've got to have some good data, and that's really the program started over 30 years ago with those key things. And since we've done those selective breedings and stockings of their offspring, we've actually had wild caught offsprings over 13 pounds that have been donated to the program. And so we've started to see that, and that's an amazing data point to get.
That's one of my favorites. There was a fish from Lake Conroe over 13 pounds donated to the program. Y'all spawned it in captivity, stocked some of those offspring at Marine Creek, and now there has been another Lunker from Marine Creek that was a direct offspring of that fish from Conroe.
The sister of that fish.
The sister.
From the same spawn.
Oh, sister. Okay, sister.
Yep.
Okay.
So we've actually had that happen, I think, 11 times.
Just a prime example of how that program literally, that particular 13-pounder doesn't exist without Lunker.
Correct.
And that guy got to catch the fish of a lifetime directly because of
New lake record.
New lake record.
New personal best.
Yeah.
And
that one was 14, I think 14, right? 14 pounds.
36.
Yeah.
And that, we have the exact day that fish spawned in 2006, the exact day that it was stocked, and then the exact day that we harvested it from the lake.
That's some good data.
Spawned it again. I know.
That's important.
That's
data.
amazing. Yeah, that's the amazing data that we have. As the program has transitioned throughout the years, technology has advanced, not only the fishing side of things, but in the genetic side of things. We've had great partners like Toyota that have given us the ability to acquire this cutting-edge genetic data that allows us to analyze the DNA of these specific fish and get down into the lineage of each one, who their dad is, who their mom is, who their brother and the sisters are, and identify those different fish from the same spawn that are related.
Now, y'all have had how many 13-pound Sherlunker fish have been turned into the program at this point?
We're right at about 585, so we're approaching 600 total entries, over 13 for the spawning season, which is a very small select window.
Yeah. Yeah, yes, like there's a lot of 13-pounders that get caught in the state of Texas in June through, what's the window now? Because it's changed recently.
Yeah, so it used to be October through April.
Yeah.
That was what it was from the beginning of the program. And then, several years ago, we transitioned that to just be January through March. And
so prime spawning season.
Prime spawning season, prime collection. These are wild fish.
The prelude to the spawning season, I guess you would say, because it's when fish are getting ready to spawn.
Correct. They're getting ready to spawn, or they're actively trying to spawn. And that
was to make sure that you guys, when y'all got fish in, that was to increase the odds that they actually would spawn in captivity. Is that correct?
They would spawn and they would be successfully released. Throughout the years, when the program started in the very beginning, we'd never seen this size fish in Texas, and we'd never really handled this size fish in Texas. So as an agency, we've had to learn throughout the years how to be successful at holding up fish in captivity, handling fish, and anglers even. We've had to learn as anglers how to figure out how to better take care of these old fish, these gigantic
They're really
fish.
old.
They are.
That's something you're dealing with, a very fragile resource when you get those fish in here because they're old.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, a fish reaches 13 pounds. She's lived a long time.
She's about 10 to 12 years old on average, depending on.
And what's their normal life expectancy?
Right around there. I think 15 years is.
It's kind of the top end.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a fish that odds are that fish has got a chance of being dead within a year or two of it being turned in once it reaches that weight.
Potential, yeah. It depends on its age again, but in the South, these fish.
And there are some exceptions, of course.
Yeah, in the South though, these fish, they live fast and they die young, so they get that size a lot quicker than some of your fish up north. You get some of these smallmouth in your northern lakes that are older than that, but they have a slower growing season compared to what they do in the South, like these largemouth.
Yeah, that's an interesting aspect. I have a theory about some of our power plant lakes. Mm-hmm. Because, like back when the power plant lakes were first around, there were actually bigger fish caught in them than there are now. And my theory was when the power plant was getting built, the lake was built, then the power plant was built. The power plant, maybe when it first came online, wasn't pumping as much hot water. Mm-hmm. And the hotter they made those water temps, that fish's length of life has to go down. Mm-hmm. So even though they reproduce like crazy numbers on a lake like, say, Lake Welsh, where it's really uncommon these days to catch an 8-pounder out at Lake Welsh. And they used to catch double-digit class fish there way back when. But when that water's that hot, those fish can't live long enough to get to. I feel like they can't live long enough to get to a 12 or 13-pound fish.
Yeah.
So that's why you see so many of the 4 or 5. Sure. That's just a theory that I always had. Anyway, that was interesting to hear you say. Squirrel. I chase squirrel. I chase them. That's what I do. My bad. Yep. Back on to Sherlunker. Great program. And that's the primary function is you guys get these fish, anglers catch them, they turn them in, you bring them in, and then what? Talk us through the process.
Yeah, so it's really a fast process. We make initial contact with the angler after they've caught the fish, and most of the time they've waited already. They certify it. They say, hey, we've got it. On Lake Fork especially, it's one of our best lakes. It's contributed around 46% of all the fish we've
almost
collected.
Half of the fish for the Sherlunker program have come from Lake Fork, right?
Yeah, and so we've set up collection stations. We call them weigh and holding stations. So there's 3 main marinas, Lake Fork Marina, Oak Ridge, and Minnebucket, that have holding tanks that these fish will be held in until we're able to transport it with our truck back to this facility here.
Yeah, y'all have a big oxygenated tank in the back of a truck that you guys come and pick these fish up with.
Yeah, we do. It's about a 150-gallon tank that sits in the back of the Toyota Tundra, and it's got an oxygen bottle hooked up to it that sends pure oxygen into it through a microstone, and then we also have water agitators if we need to increase that oxygen level. We monitor it, as we transport it. Yeah. But basically, collect the fish from the angler. When we get there and the fish is in proper condition, we feel like it could successfully spawn and be returned, we'll bring that fish back to the facility here. We put it down in a lunker bunker, which we can show you a couple of B-roll shots of that.
Yep, y'all are seeing some of those shots,
tanks. And in the lunker bunker there, each fish gets its own tank. We monitor that fish. So we actually bring it in straight off the truck, put it into a small holding tank, which is basically what we work the fish up in. We actually sedate the fish. We go over every inch of the fish's body. We treat any sores that have, any scrapes that might have incurred through the process. And then if we need to vent the fish's air bladder, we'll vent it. And then from there, we'll resuscitate the fish, put it into a holding tank, and then monitor it for about a week and a half. And from that week and a half, once it recovers through the process, we'll then attempt to pair it up. Again, depending on when we get it. If we get the fish in the beginning of January, we're going to wait for a little while before we pair it up. But then we pair it up, spawn it.
Now, y'all check the fish, and y'all do DNA tests to make sure that it is a certain percentage Florida strain. Is that correct?
We do. We run a DNA test mainly to determine if it's 100% pure Florida for our brood stock conversion. And that's another step in the program. It's really the evolution of the program that we can get more on later. But we'll spawn, even if it's an intergrade, if it's part Florida, part northern, we still spawn that fish because
now there used to be fish that y'all would kick back, right? If they weren't a certain percentage, is that not the way it is now?
That's not the way it is now. And really the main
so any fish over 13 pounds stays in the program now.
Anything over 13 pounds gets gets brought here, selectively bred, and then its offspring stocked. If it's 100% pure Florida, we take that offspring, a portion of it, stock it back in the lake, and then a portion of it gets held over long term to recreate our brood stock fish here.
I got you. So the males that y'all pair them up with, pure Florida strain males?
They're pure Florida offspring from ShareLunkers. So we hold over ShareLunker males.
Oh, they're only...
So a ShareLunker female spawned with a ShareLunker male, it's about 3 pounds.
So it's only... ShareLunker genetics.
And that again, since Toyota provided us the opportunity to get our hands on that advanced equipment, we can analyze that DNA down, and determine that is this fish is related to that lunker, and we're going to spot it with this lunker.
And that is incredible.
Yeah, it is.
I knew that y'all were using Florida. I did not know that the males were ShareLunker offspring as well. That's something that I had missed in the press clipping, so to speak. But man, so you guys, obviously y'all go through a painstaking process. Y'all go through a lot of trouble to try and ensure that you're taking care of these fish.
Yeah, exactly.
And maintain the most important thing is maintaining the health of the fish. And you guys do a great job of that.
Exactly. We may run out, to Allen Henry, for example, a six-hour trip from this facility, but it'll take us 10 or 12 hours to get back because of the amount of monitoring that we're doing of that fish all the way back. We're constantly monitoring the water quality, constantly monitoring the fish's health and its attitude.
And that's something I wanted to touch on a little bit because, there are some inside the fishing world that are not approving of the ShareLunker program. They don't think the ShareLunker program is a net gain for the world of bass fishing. I personally, not just saying this because I'm standing here, I personally think they're insane. But their main argument, or one of their main arguments that some of those people that are against the ShareLunker program have said, is they point to some of the mortality that you guys have had in captivity. Now, overall, you guys' survival rate's been phenomenal through the life of the program. Even when it started as a new program and nobody knew what they were doing. Yeah. It was brand new. We were just learning OJT, baby, on the job training, Right. And even with that, when you did lose some fish back then, and any complications you've had going forward, what is y'all's survival rate's really high. What is y'all's survival rate?
Yeah, it's in the high 80s. It's almost 90% now. We've had a really good, run of successful releases of these fish, and survival rates have gone up. In the beginning it was lower, like you said. We were figuring things out as we go. We didn't have this facility when we started the program. It was in Tyler still.
Right.
And so this facility was actually built as part of that process to get better at, holding these fish in captivity and successfully releasing them back to the lake.
So almost right at 90% survival rate through the life of the program, even through the hard years in the beginning, and any complications that have arose since. And now here recently, when you guys get a fish that doesn't make it, it seems like there's usually an explanation that is not at your hands. One example that glares out is the Lake Nacogdoches fish. Mm-hmm. Or was it Nacogdoches or Nacogdoches?
Nacogdoches.
The Lake Nacogdoches fish ended up dying in captivity. Mm-hmm. But tell me what else happened. Yeah. So he died from a fungal infection, right?
Correct. Yep. It just kind of outbreak that the fish couldn't overcome. We treated him, we treated her. She actually couldn't overcome it. But there was a fish similar size found floating on Lake Nacogdoches, about a week later from when we collected that fish, that appeared to die from a similar process. So there, that fish that came to our facility,
it appeared to die from the fungal infection too.
It could have had that infection before it ever came here, and then it just manifested it when it got here. But again, that fish could have died in the wild anyways. It could have been up for, just like the fate of that other fish. It
could have died the same time. It could have died on the exact same day it died. It could have died on that day in the wild from that fungal infection. Yeah. In fact, you guys may have even prolonged its life by a little bit, a few days or
Correct.
something by treating that the best you could.
Yeah.
There's nothing to say that that fish wasn't going to die. When you have another fish that size found with a similar type of fungal effect, like that's a lot of similarities. And that's what I wanted to point out. I wanted to make that clear to any of you guys that are watching that have heard some of the negative connotation from some of those out there about the Share Lunker program. Hey, these guys go through immense amounts of precautions to take care of these fish and handle them the right way and do everything else. And remember what they're dealing with, guys. They're dealing with extreme versions of senior citizens.
Yeah.
They're dealing with a very, very old fish.
Towards the end of their lifespan.
And this program, to me, is a very much net win for the bass fishing world, because what we get is we get great genetics stocked throughout our fisheries in the state. We get a lot of knowledge of growing abilities of these fish and what good stocking Florida strain does and what good, there's just so much knowledge that comes out of the program.
Exactly.
Yes, are we going to lose some of the fish from time to time? Of course we are. You know what else? Sometimes when you catch a 13-pounder and let it go, it's going to die then too, from the stress of being caught.
Exactly.
Like, that's part of fishing. We are going, as fishermen, as bass fishermen, we are going to kill some of the fish we catch. You can't avoid
That's just an inherent risk, right? Like being caught and landed and held is an unnatural process for a bass.
Like if
especially an elderly bass.
if aliens were jerking us up off planet Earth all the time, some of us probably wouldn't survive it.
Yeah, we'd probably got nothing.
Well, man, that's great, dude. I'm super, honored that you guys let me come down here and get the inside look that I've gotten today. It's been great to talk to you guys. Jake's conversation was, and that study y'all are doing is awesome. And I've said it many times, but we are so lucky in the state of Texas that we have you guys, because this is hands down the best outdoors department anywhere across the country. You talk to any touring professional bass fisherman that fishes all across the country, you ask him about what goes on here in Texas, and they'll all tell you, every single one of them, not one of them won't agree with this, Texas has got it figured out better than anywhere else when it comes to taking care of their natural resources outdoors.
Well, we appreciate that. Bass fishing is a huge thing for us, and especially with Share Lunker. That's the unique thing about the program is it's been a learning process for everybody, and the program itself is so unique because it's a really a partnership between the agency and the anglers. Now, I'm a diehard bass fisherman myself, which is how I got involved in the Share Lunker program. I wanted to see it succeed. I wanted to see bass fishing improve in Texas and to be the best it can be, and really be, Texas be the bass fishing capital of the world. That's what we want to see.
And it's kind of become that.
It has.
It kind of has become that. And again, that's due to y'all. And that's been one thing that has struck me here today, is you guys saw the video with Jake Norman, the biologist, on a different day, on a different video, but this is all the same day. We filmed it all the same day. And one thing that has struck me is that everybody that's involved in this that I've met, they're bass fishermen. They love to get out there and go catch them green ones, right? That's great. But like that study that they're doing with the tracking survey, you guys are doing things that the public body of anglers is asking for y'all to do. They're asking, hey, we want this information. Hey, we want this stocking. Hey, we want, and y'all are following through. And I said it in the Jake Norman video, but you guys are like the only government agency I know that actually takes the taxpayer's money and spends it on what the taxpayer wants you to spend it on. So we appreciate that.
For sure. And that's, we've done studies like that with Share Lunker, comparing a spawned offspring from a 13-pounder in a natural environment, its growth rate next to, a standard traditional pure Florida bass. And really, that information we found, really they do grow faster and bigger.
So there is so you have verified and proven now that there is genetic advantage to these bigger fish.
Oh yeah, there's definitely genetic advantage to it, and that's really the whole
versus just a pure Florida strain.
Yes, because these fish have shown the predisposition to reach 13 pounds or bigger, and in order to, not every fish is going to get that big, right? So when you take the genetics from that fish and you increase your stockings, which is another piece of the program that I'd love to touch on if you got time.
Yeah, absolutely. All time more.
We're recreating our brood stock, and our brood stock is just our standard production bass. So we'll see the raceway building in a second. You'll get to actually see the tanks that the fish are spawned in. And what we do is we take those standard production bass, which females are around 5 to 8 pounds, and the males are around 2 to 3 pounds. And those bass are just pure Florida bass. But what we're doing is we're taking a portion of the offspring from our selectively bred bass, these 13-pounders that have proven that they can get that big, and we're recreating those standard production bass, recreating our brood stock fish to be direct descendants from those.
Wow.
So, in short, what that does is we stock, somewhere around 100,000 on average offspring from Share Lunkers every year. we're going to go from 100,000 to 4 to 6 million once we get that fully incorporated.
Yeah, because you guys, that's awesome. So you guys are taking the offspring of share lunker, keeping a select amount of them to create more share lunker grandchildren, so to speak.
Exactly.
And that's what's going to go into our lakes.
Exactly. So
that
we're
is
stocking
so awesome,
fish
man.
that have
Yeah.
a lineage of a fish that's proven to get world-class size.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. And I'm glad to hear that you guys have, because that was a debate. That was one of the other, arguments against the program was, well, you can just stock Florida stream bass. You don't need to take the fish. But you guys have proven that the genetics do matter.
Yeah, within our science, we've proven the genetics and the tie to that size, through the genetics.
Yeah.
That there is an advantage that a fish that has proven to get that size, the offspring have an advantage over just your standard bass.
Yeah, because you got to have several different things for a bass to get that big. But one thing that you got to have a fish that will grow to that frame to fill it out.
Exactly.
And then you got to have the environment.
You've seen that countless times throughout, cattle, horses, deer, all those things. There's a genetic, process you've got to map out.
If your dad's 6'6" and your mom's 6 foot, you're probably not going to be 5'6".
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly.
You're probably not. So, same deal. And it's like that throughout nature with every type of animal. You're absolutely correct.
Exactly. And something else that the program that has really evolved into is expanded. Not only do we have our bread and butter where we're doing our selective breeding, but it's expanded the process of data collection. And so, around 3 years ago now, they expanded it to where we will collect angler caught data from fish over 8 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically that's a year-long process. An angler catches a fish, they submit it through our app or our website, and that catch data is then paired with the survey data that our management teams are collecting through their electrofishing and their angler creel surveys to really get a good snapshot not only of the health of the fishery, but also these trophy-sized bass in the fishery.
Mm-hmm.
And so that allows them to better manage it, especially in Fork's case, getting all that data from those fish in that size range, 8 to 10 to 12 pounds, and then over 12 pounds, obviously 13 pounds. But getting that data is really vital to understanding what is that trophy-sized bass population doing in that fishery.
Mm-hmm.
And is it increasing or is it decreasing? And if it's decreasing, how do we better manage what we have, what resources we have in order to help that bar come back up?
Of course.
And we're also collecting, we're asking for data samples from those fish too. So you can pull a scale from any fish you catch over 8 pounds, send it in, and we run it through the same process we do with our 13 pounders. We see if it's related to any of those 13 pounders. If that fish was spawned in our facility, it's been stocked out in the wild, and it's only 9 pounds at this point. But we can identify when it was spawned and how long it's taken to get to that size. Mm-hmm. And we can see those up and coming world-class size fish.
So you guys can tell all that from one scale?
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah, we just pulled a DNA sample off of a tissue sample. And
it's way above my pay grade, homie. That's way above my pay grade. No, that's great, man. That is, and I'll be honest with you, y'all did the 8 pound deal, and I was like, well, man, we catch a lot of 8 pounders.
You do, yes.
And so I was like,
but sometimes you catch the same one and you don't know it.
And I'm like, man, I don't want to send in because I'm a big supporter of the Share Local program and everything it's done, especially being in Lake Fork. I don't want to take pictures and I've never turned an 8 pound. I've never turned it in. I guess I probably should.
Yeah, I mean, it would be huge. Help.
If I care about the program, then I should be turning in that information.
And it's even more than just a program. The program is there to serve the fishery and the anglers, and that's really, that data is data that our traditional sampling methods don't collect. When we go out and electrofish in the fall and the spring, they don't get enough data points on fish over 8 pounds to really be able to make some conclusive decisions. And so pairing this data that anglers are providing is huge, and it's vital to that success of understanding those lunker-sized bass.
There we go. Call to action, your Lake Fork Guide viewers. Every time you catch one over 8 pounds, download the Share Lunker app, first of all. It's free. And you can use that Share Lunker app to send in information on the fish you catch. And if at all possible, collect one scale and send that in.
Yep, just in a little envelope. We've got a process in the app that will walk you through how to pull that scale and how to mail it in.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, we do give away some prizes as a fun incentive, and congratulations and thank you for that. So. Yeah,
I've been hoping to have myself or one of my customers catch a fish that we can bring down here that's over 13 pounds, and then to catch it in the window. I got close. I got really close. Actually,
he submitted that fish. That kid on that caught the 12.
The 12 too. He sure did. I remember that one. Yeah, we had a 12 on fork at the right time of year, and then it was a 12-pound 2-ounce fish, and we had a 12-pound 13-ounce like right over this hill.
Yeah.
Like literally, it was on that part of the lake right over this hill. I had a customer catch one 3-ounce shot. Now that would have been outside the donation window, but still got really close. That's been a big goal of mine, is to get over that 13-pound mark. I haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
We've actually had a couple. We could spend a whole nother day talking about two of the biggest heartbreaks I've ever seen. I've had two customers have fish on that we got to see that I'm really, really positive were over 13 that did not make it to the boat.
Yep.
One just came unbuttoned and one broke off, but that's a whole nother.
Yeah.
That's a big squirrel. We don't need to chase that one.
Yeah, you got a big fish whenever they roll on their side like that at the top of the water.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. It's a whole different ball game.
It is.
Yep, it is. Sure is. Well, man, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about the Share Lunker program, guys. I can't put my stamp of approval enough on the Share Lunker program and everything they've done for our fisheries in this state. It's how I make my living. It's how you guys enjoy your time on the weekends if you're watching this channel. So please do everything you can to support the Share Lunker program. Download that app. Participate in the program when you catch one over 8 pounds. Hey, we appreciate you guys watching as always. We'll see you next time right here on your Lake Fork Guide.
These bass in this tank here are actually some offspring we held over from one of our spawns this year. Just to throw on display here at the center. But they're around 10 to 12 inches long right now.
Look how fat they all are.
Yeah, they're little footballs.
They got them good genetics. Yeah, they look pretty fired up.